We are back, people. What is up? Another stream. Let me make sure I'm good to go. Okay, looks like we're live. Boom, boom, boom. Refresh that. Gotta get my YouTube dashboard up. Okay, cool. Gonna go over some Miami Dolphins. I think, best day two options. So looking at like round 2 and 3, because we've talked about a lot about the round 1 stuff, and because with round 1 obviously very important, but I actually think day 2 might be the most important day for the Dolphins, because round 1 you have a higher chance of hitting, but day 2 the Dolphins I feel like have just been hit or miss, like quite hit or miss in this regime. I feel like they've actually been maybe even more consistent in like day 3 at times, which is interesting. The Dolphins have a lot of day 3 picks. That's another obviously important day to fill in, like, the depth of the roster and getting guys that are, potentially those are guys where you're looking for guys that can contribute, be potential rotational players, special teams players. Day 2 is like, you can still get some potential starters, especially in this draft, because this draft really is strong from like that 20 to 80 range, and the Dolphins only have 1 pick in that range. Their 3rd round pick is pretty late at 98. And who knows how it will play out, maybe if trades happen, they can get another pick in that range. But I do feel like getting, if they nail the day 2 picks, that is probably pretty good. I mean, I think that might be bigger than any of the other days, just considering this class. What's up, guys? What's up, Trollway, Irving, Nicholas? How you guys doing? Getting closer. End of March, so I mean, we're almost in April when the draft is around the corner. Definitely my favorite time of the year. I'm so excited for it to actually be here. We'll go live during the draft. I think last year I only went live the first 2 days, and then on day 3 I streamed after the fact. But I think I'm going to go live on day 3, because this year the Dolphins have so many picks, especially early in day 3. I should go at least live for like the early portion. Maybe once we get past the like 4th and 5th round, because then the Dolphins don't pick until like the 7th, and then we can go live later after that. But yeah, it should be a good time. But yeah, we'll talk about some day 2 options, because round 1 we know. I think day 2 is in the same like positions, at least for the most part. It maybe opens up a little bit more. Like, I think round 1 feels most likely it's going to be like a corner or a D tackle at this point, maybe O-line, maybe safety. Then I think on day 2 it really could be, those positions as well, but also I think maybe tight end becomes a chance of being a pick, maybe a linebacker if that's where best player available falls. I don't think they're going to go after like receiver, running back, but receiver is always an option, just because, it's an important position and sometimes it's just clearly best player available. But I don't think it would be an option until like round 3. Because you got to know, the round 3 pick is so late. It's almost like it's very close to where your round 4 picks are. So like, if you're willing to pick one of those like positions in round 4, but you're mad that they picked him in round 3, it's not too much of a difference. I was watching Will Johnson tape this morning from 2023. He had some major wins versus Marv in Rome. Yeah, his 2023 film I think was even better. A lot of these guys actually I think had better 2023 film. I think it's probably because Johnson was healthy, more so in 2023. But yes, he had very good battles with those guys. Sometimes those guys won, but he won a decent amount of it as well. But yeah, do like Johnson. I think he's one of the guys that has a decent chance of being the pick at 13, but he might not even ever make it there, so who knows. But day 2, we can start with corner on day 2, because this is a reason I kind of am down. Like, I know it feels more and more likely that D-line will be the pick in round 1, but I actually kind of like the idea of it being a corner, because I think I like the D-line on day 2 more than I like the corners on day 2. Because really, it kind of depends, because one, I think the guys who will be gone are for sure, obviously, Travis Hunter, Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron will be gone. Then after that, I think Siobhan Ravel and Benjamin Morrison will be gone, just because of their film and how good they are. But they could potentially be there at 48, especially Morrison. I think Ravel will be gone. But both of them have really good film, but might fall due to injury. And if they're at 48, then that would be really good value, because they're both probably first round players. But I think probably the most like likely to me, he could also go first round. I've seen some people pushing him up into the first round, is Trey Amos, the Ole Miss corner. But he's one that I could definitely see being there at 48. I think, he's a fairly good scheme fit. with his instincts. I think he's got like this. He's got pretty good size and athleticism. I think he meets those thresholds that Miami looks for. It is kind of tough to predict corner because if you look at Weaver's only been here 1 year. Like knowing the scheme fits for the Dolphins' offense is very easy. The Shanahan scheme, and McDaniel's been here for years now. We know what they're looking for. Defense with Weaver under 1 year, and Weaver kind of is bringing in a mix of two different schemes, so we don't know exactly which one he values yet. But corner, it seems like they're pretty flexible with like the size and athletic traits. But he's a guy that can definitely play like in zone, and then every once in a while be a press man guy for you as well. Has the mirror and match ability, instincts, length. Feels like the best coverages he plays are in like cover 3, cover 2. So he's kind of a day 2 option, one that I think has like a decent chance of happening, and one that I would actually like. Because honestly, after the round 2, I don't love any of the other like potential round 2 corners. I would wait till round 3 for the other ones. Like I know people are talking of Darian Porter, the Iowa State guy, even as a round 1 guy. Personally, I'd still have him as a day 3 player. I get that he was tested super well and he's long and has the size. Might even be a better safety than a corner. Who knows? But for me, he's more of a day 3 guy. I think there's just like a lack of awareness, and I think he's more of a linear athlete. Which to me, I think it's tough to be a corner and be a linear athlete unless you're like strictly playing cover 3, because you have to be able to flip your hips, play with hip fluidity, change direction, and I just don't see that with Porter. Then some other potential day 3 or day 2 options, like maybe late day 2. These might be more 3rd round guys, are like Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State. Love him, and he can play nickel. I think Dorian Strong, he might go round 3, round 4, so he's like on that bubble. I think he's a good scheme fit. The other round 2 one I would consider is probably Thomas from Florida State. If you want a more like long press man corner, if that's the direction they want to go, I think he has the talent to where he'd be good enough at 48. I don't know if he's like the ideal scheme fit, unless they want to get a little more physical. Which, if you look at like the Ravens and the Seahawks, who run Weaver comes from that sort of tree. They actually played more press man than the Dolphins did, so maybe we just didn't have the talent for it at corner, or the skill sets. Maybe they want to go more in that direction, then they go after Thomas. So that's an interesting, I think, name to talk about at corner. Round 3 options, maybe like Noel Williams, Mac McWilliams, Quincy Riley out of Louisville. Not some bad players there. I think if you pass on the round 1 corners, I do think there is a pretty far fall off, especially of like Ravel and Morrison going round 1. While D-line kind of stays a little more consistent, but there is definitely some good players. Let me see what you're saying. Hey, Ryder, did you see that recent ESPN 7 mock draft? The guy had us taking Camel at 13, had us taking 3, so didn't have it taken until round 7. I don't know what he's smoking. I actually didn't see that, but yeah, I don't put too much stock in like the ESPN mock drafts. I only put like stock into the mock drafts of like people that are clearly have like they are like talking to scouts and they clearly do a lot of work, like I like the Daniel Jeremiahs, and why am I blanking on his name? But there's another guy that I really like who puts in a ton of work. But the guys who are clearly connected have sources and stuff like that. Maxwell Hairston, yeah, we can talk about. The reason I didn't say it is like, one, I love his film. He would be a great round 2 pick just based on his film at 48, but it seems like he has some serious off-field issues, and it's not just like a one-off case. Like apparently it's happened like multiple times, or like he's been accused multiple times. So like for me, I would just rather go after players that don't have that baggage, because I still think you can get good players in that area that are right there. Yeah, love Jacob Parrish as like as a round 3 option. Let's see. In day 2, I'm not panicking if we don't the round 2. Yeah. I actually don't. I actually think it's better. The Dolphins, like, O-line's obviously a big need, but it's not one of those things where like I actually think I still think D-line and corner are slightly bigger needs. And I think with just how this draft is, I actually think it's smarter to pick an O-lineman on day 2 than day 1. But yeah, we'll talk about some of those options for sure. I'm not passing up Will Johnson over Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. No way. For Kenneth Grant, no. Mason Graham, I think, is a discussion, but it just depends. Will Johnson's biggest question mark right now is he's had some injuries, and that is something to be concerned about. Yeah, we'll talk about guards next. Let me see what else you guys are saying though. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of D-line options. I don't know. I don't really like Deion Walker personally, but yeah, Tyler Williams is good, but he might be gone by 48. Norman Lott's another one, but he has some question marks. Yeah. Some O linemen that I think are potential day 2 options for Miami. Obviously, the main ones will be off the board, but I think that's where you start getting to guys like you're probably pretty happy if someone like the ones that I think will be gone, but I guess it's not 100% they're gone, are guys like Donovan Jackson, Gray Zabel. Now, I do think those players will be gone at 48, but if they were, like if Donovan Jackson's there, I'd be running up to the podium at 48 to pick him because he'd be great value, great scheme fit, and has like that versatility to potentially play tackle if it's needed with injuries. So I would love Jackson. He would be a plug and play left guard in the system, would fit well. Yeah. Same with Gray Zabel. But I think both will be gone. Now, guys that I think have a chance to be there are Tate Ratledge and Jonas Avenaya. I think they have a chance of being there. They could both be gone as well. But I think there's a decent chance they're both there, and they both would probably play right guard. That's where they have experience at. So maybe with that, it would bump James Daniel over to left guard. Ratledge, before his injury, actually looked really well, and both of them tested, I think, better than expected, which is nice, for Miami's scheme. They love some athletes. Guard is the one position where you don't have to be as athletic in the Dolphin system, but their ability to work combos and create, displacement while also being relatively like aware players, like good spatial awareness, which I think is a nice thing. So those would be 2 names that I would really like in round 2. At guard, at least. That's probably it for guards, though. I think more of them, I think Milam would be more, if he was day 2, he'd be more of a round 3 option. But he even might be a potential round 4 option, depending on how far he falls, because he had a rough, Senior Bowl, and I can't remember how he tested. But then someone like Miles Frazier, he could be a potential, round 3 option. I know people like him a lot. I'm not as high on him as maybe some other people that I've seen, but he's a potential option. Round 3, potentially Anthony Belton from NC State. He played mostly tackle, but I think he projects to be a guard at the next level. Very aggressive. Needs to, play with more consistency, but, he has the size and athleticism and could play physically dominant. And, his weaknesses would kind of be masked in the Dolphins scheme, so that would be an interesting fit as well. Then there's other guys, if you wanted to go for swing tackles, like Charles Grant, Chase Lunt, they fit the system super well, super athletes. I think guys the Dolphins will like for sure. And they're probably both potential round 3 guys more so than round 2 guys, but just names to know. That's kind of it for the O-line. There's probably some other names you could throw in there, but those are kind of the ones I would be looking at. You could be yeah. I actually think I've seen Will Johnson comp to Surtain, and I think Surtain is better in man-to-man, but I do see kind of the comparisons with I think size and athleticism are pretty similar. And I think from off man in zone, yeah, I can see Johnson being that. I don't think he's good as a press man guy. Surtain is. Surtain's obviously a beast, but you get him in you get him playing with vision. You want his vision. You want him off the ball and allow him to play downhill a little bit because man, he jumps routes sometimes a little too aggressive, but man, he is a guy that's going to take a chance and get a lot of pick sixes. He had a lot in college. Very instinctive player. He anticipates very, very well. So that's probably my favorite part of Will Johnson's game is when he's either an off man or playing in a softer, zone coverage. Let him anticipate things because he's very, patient and reads things very, very quickly. Has good understanding leverage and stuff like that. Yeah, that's kind of the. Oh, also Marcus Bowe. I didn't mention Marcus Bowe. I think Marcus Bowe is a day 2 option. Scheme fit. I don't know where he would play in the Dolphin system. Probably could try him at all O-line spots. I actually think he's a guy that could potentially play, all spots on the O-line. and he's one of my favorite players to watch in the class. You don't see many guys as nuanced as him. If you watch his film, most O linemen do like the same thing pretty much every snap. Marcus Bowe is constantly mixing up like his sets, how he's attacking people, his hand usage. Very fun player. Are you okay with Jade Barron at 13? Yes. I'm actually more than okay with it. I'd be very happy if he was the pick. I know not everyone feels that way, but that's probably the one player that's not out of like the super obvious ones that like I probably like more than most Dolphins fans. Because I have him graded around that area, so I think the value is good. I think that's where most people have a problem. They think it's not great value. You get him in a trade back. I don't think you're going to get him in a trade back most likely because I think he's going to go shortly after the Dolphins pick if the Dolphins don't take him. But he has like the ideal instincts and versatility. And like the coverages he's best in are what Miami runs. And like he does a great job of like squeezing on cover 3, makes plays at catch points, and you can use him everywhere. Because I've seen him play as like a linebacker. Guy's not even a big corner, but he's playing linebacker, safety, nickel. But yeah, I am just a big Jade fan, so it'd probably be the one pick that maybe people aren't as high on, but I do like him a lot. But he tries to bait. I haven't really noticed that. I actually think Will Johnson's more of a baiter than Jade. I think Jade actually plays pretty disciplined. Will Johnson is like probably the biggest baiter in the class, which gets him either pick sixes or he will, sometimes lose to double moves. Sometimes he'll be susceptible to that. But both very good players. Johnson just has the higher ceiling. I think Johnson's biggest question marks are just the injury, and then he also hasn't tested yet, so people are, I think, concerned with his speed. I think his speed's fine. I don't have any problems with it, but I know some people do. Let's see, what other positions we go to? Let's go to safety. I think safety becomes a much bigger potential pick on day 2 and day 3 than it does day 1. Like, I know people are mocking Malachi Starks and Nick Emenwari to the Dolphins, and while I don't think it's impossible, it feels kind of like O-line to me. Like, I think they're just going to value the corners and D linemen more. So it just feels like I don't think they're going to take them. But outside of that, there's some good guys on day 2. I think Xavier Watts, we've talked about a lot. Probably one of the smartest players in the class, just hands down. Andrew Makuba, I think both round 2 options. Xavier Watts, Andrew Makuba, both could be gone. Both could be there. Both extremely intelligent football players. Watts probably going to be more of a back-end safety, while Makuba maybe has a little more flexibility with where they like to play him. But dude's super smart. Little undersized, but doesn't play like it. Like, he loves to hit. Loves to play downhill. Very, good job like reading the quarterback. Good job reading concepts. Has good peripheral vision. Just feel. Big Makuba fan. Another guy who I actually just made a video on, Kevin Winston Jr. He is coming off a torn ACL, so this is just another guy that I think like there's a lot of DBs that have had injuries that like might fall a little bit, like Winston Jr., Siobhan Ravel, Benjamin Morrison. I actually think Winston Jr.'s film is pretty comparable to Nick Emenwari's film. I think Emenwari is a little more athletic, obviously. Like, he's more explosive. But I think him and Winston both are a little bit more stiff. Winston's not as big or, maybe, straight line explosive. But Winston Jr. is also fast. Like, he was like 5 months off a torn ACL, and he ran a 4.4 at his pro day. And I think the one place he can like set himself apart is he's the best tackling safety. Like, his missed tackle percentage is so low. This guy does not miss tackles. It's actually insane. He also can match like tight ends. He can play as a, free safety. You can let him go a little bit rogue as well. Has good straight line speed. He's a guy I like a lot, and I think he'll be a day 2 steal for some team as long as he, gets back to health. I believe it was a partially torn ACL, so it's not like super crazy. Like, he should be like ready for the season. He already ran at his pro day. But he's another name to know that I feel like I haven't talked about a ton. Then some other ones that I think are potential more like round 3-ish options that could be there in round 3. And, maybe round 4 as well, but I got to mention them are Hunter Wohler from Wisconsin. Tested super well. Feels like a guy that would fit within the system. Maybe more as a box safety rather than playing middle of the field. I think, box safety that could play also like split field safety, looks like quarters, cover 2. He's not going to be like a rangy free safety, but he's a good tackler. Has some versatility to him as well. Tested better than I thought he would, and he's just a smart, physical player. Has good size. Um, a guy that I think is more like in that middle round option, but a potential at 98 because Dolphins' third round pick is so late, anyways. Same with like Lathan Ransom, but he's more like Lathan Ransom's probably one of the best like run defenders at safety in the class. That guy runs alleys, gets downhill, and he looks to hit you if you want that. I am more so looking for like free safety types. That's why I kind of like Watts and Makuba because I think right now with your roster, you don't really have that, at least as a starter. Like that would be like Ashton Davis, which I think he's more of a depth guy. And your other starter right now would be Melifonwu, who's more of a big, slot / strong safety type of player. Let's say. You think Kenneth Graham would be better or worse long term than Barron / Campbell? Better or worse long term? I mean, honestly, I could see Kenneth Grant developing into being like a pretty good player long term. I think right away he'll still be like a quality player. I do have Campbell and Barron ranked a little over him, but not by much. So like I do think they'll be better probably for you. But I think Grant's going to be a very good player as well. You like Walter Nolan over Derek Carmen? I have questions with Nolan because one, I think his film is inconsistent. I think he has super high upside. Like when he flashes like his ability, his explosiveness combined with power immediately tells me he's going to be a disruptive threat, especially as a 3-tech. I think the problem with Nolan is apparently there's some off-field concerns and the film isn't always consistent. And I also really like Harmon, so I would probably take Harmon over Nolan because of those reasons, even though I think Nolan's film might be like slightly better. Amenwari had a top 30 visit with Miami. Yeah, he did. That doesn't always mean something. I think the Dolphins only took one person they had a top 30 visit with last year, so but yeah, I do think they will like him as a player. Is there a player who would keep you from trading back in round 1? For me, probably not. Like I would always be considering trading back. Like even if it's someone I love, if the draft capital offered is good enough, I would consider it because I would have faith in my ability to still draft a good player. But obviously it depends. Like I think for the most part, if there's a player on the board that I love, I'm probably just going to sit there and take them. But if someone offers you something great, and you look at the board and think like, hey, I still think a couple players I like a lot will be there, then I'm considering it no matter who it is, especially in this class, because unless it's like Travis Hunter or something, there's not many players in this class that feel like super standout-ish. It's not a super top-heavy class. Davis always balled against Miami. Oh, yeah, Ashton? Yeah, he did. He had all his best games against Miami. You like Carson Schwessinger? Yeah, so we'll go to round 2 linebackers then. Yeah, not many day 2 linebackers I like. But I think Schwessinger in round 2 is probably the only round 2 linebacker I like because I think Campbell and Walker will go round 1. Well, Campbell has the injury, so who knows now. But I think out of round 2 linebackers, the only one I really like would be Schwessinger. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to go after linebacker, but it's still a possibility. But after that, like round 3 guys, more like a Chris Paul Jr., Demetrius Knight Jr. But I don't love the day 2 linebackers outside of that. I think maybe some of these guys will fall to day 3. Then I'll probably start considering linebacker more, but the linebacker class is just pretty weak. Like in the strength of this class that we talked about is like that 20 to 60, 20 to 80 range. In the linebackers there's not many linebackers I think that will be ranked in a lot of teams' range there. He has been their only top 30 being reported. I also read Quinn Ewers, but I also don't care about Quinn Ewers. If you've been here, you know I'm not a Quinn Ewers fan. Conyers, yeah, Conyers is a nice late round option at tight end. There's some nice. This tight end class is good. Tight end's a position that I feel like they could be interested on any of the days. Day 2 though, going to day 2 because we're focused on. It feels like day 2. If I had to guess a tight end that they would like on like round 2, it would be Mason Taylor. He tested well. He's obviously, has the bloodline from the Dolphins. 2 of them actually, with Jason and Zach Thomas. And he's not quite he's a willing blocker, but he's a guy that I could see playing wide tight end because he has the size for it and he's willing. It's just a consistency thing. But if you have the size and willingness, I think coaches can get a tight end to be, at least more consistent. And also just as a receiver, great hands, moves super well. Very, very smooth, makes some tough catches down the field. I feel like he's a guy they'll like in round 2. More later options in round, because I think I think Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, and probably Elijah Arroyo will be gone by the time the Dolphins pick in round 2. And then in round 3, I think they could guys like Gunnar Helm, Terrence Ferguson. That's sort of probably it for day 2 options, at least because I'm looking for more wide tight ends. But yeah. Yeah. That's kind of it for tight ends. I think it just becomes more likely of a pick on day 2 than round 1. I don't think the Dolphins will take tight end round 1, even though if Tyler Warren's the best player, I would do it. But I don't think the Dolphins will. But yeah, that's most of the positions to talk about. Then we can talk D-line. So D-line's kind of weird because I obviously think obviously the round 1 options are more like the Michigan kids. And then I think guys like Derek Harmon, Tyleik Williams probably gone as well. But if those guys are on the board, those would be really highly rated players on the board, like Derek Harmon, Tyleik Williams. Walter Nolan I think Walter Nolan actually has a chance of being there at 48 because of the off-field issues. And I wouldn't be surprised if they took that chance. He probably would be best player available just due to the board, but it is a risky pick. Alfred Collins is one I like a lot. If you want a big body that plays, from nose to 2-eye, that is a very good run defender and has the size and athleticism to, I think, develop as a pass rusher. Alfred Collins is a name to know that I like a lot, so just wanted to throw him out there. Good player as well. I feel like my settings got messed up here. It's so bright. Okay, we'll get rid of that. Okay, but I do like Collins. Yeah, I didn't have Collins in the top 3 because I was trying to I was trying to do different rounds of players, and I just thought they would view Sanders more as a fit, but I do like Collins. Collins is one I considered as well, but I thought Collins was more of the day 2 option of Kenneth Grant because they're both more one-techs, and I wanted to get a mix of players in there, so didn't put Collins, but he is a day 2 option. Same with TJ Sanders. I think Omar Norman Law as well. He's another day 2 player if you want a strict pass rusher. Darius Alexander, who's more of could even play big edge, which I think the Dolphins would look for. This class is stacked. And there's a couple players I want to talk about who I haven't talked about. I put Verdon Broughton in that video of best fits. He's a guy that I also think the Dolphins would like a lot. Potentially CJ West, Jordan Phillips, Aeneas Peebles. I don't know if they go day 2, but those are guys who I could also potentially see interest. Shamar Turner from Texas A&M. He's kind of in the same vein of Verdon Broughton for me, that both got good size and athleticism, maybe were misused at times in their scheme, so they got held back, but would be very disruptive when they were allowed to play more aggressive instead of read and react. I've seen people say Turner's getting pushed up. I think for me, Turner would be more of a round 3 option, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Dolphins took him in round 2 because of his traits. And, he, I think, will be a better pro than he was in college because Texas A&M scheme really limited him as well. Weaver will like Farmer. Yeah, I actually haven't watched a ton of Josh Farmer, but I did see that like apparently Josh Farmer's been talking. Josh Farmer said in an interview he talks to the Chiefs and Bills every day, which was interesting. I have to watch more of Farmer, but there's a lot of names at D line. How do you feel about both Notre Dame D line? Both would be day 3 picks for me. I think Mills will be someone the Dolphins like as a scheme fit, but he would be more of a day 3 option. Plus, I think he's coming off the injury, right? And Howard Cross is like a quick, undersized sort of D lineman that can create some disruption and like one gapping stuff. But yeah, not bad players, but they're more later options. I like JJ Pegues a lot. I think he'll be seen more as like a day 3 guy though. But I'm a big Pegues fan. Like that guy aligned everywhere. He actually looked. It's surprising. A guy of his size actually played better at edge, which I thought was interesting. Like I thought his film was better at edge. But yeah, very fluid guy. Good athlete. Also played fullback and scored a lot of touchdowns for that Ole Miss team. Peebles, yeah. Peebles, Pegues, both good. Peebles is like the undersized 3 tech of this class that just will dominate with his first step quickness. Very explosive. Probably the best spin move in the class. And just has super high pass rush reps. I do like Peebles a lot. I don't know if the Dolphins will, but like, I don't know if they'll see him as a scheme fit. I don't know if he's the type of guy they're looking for, but I do like Peebles. Walker, yeah, I'm not a huge Walker fan, personally. He's a player I would avoid, but I get it. Watson, the Florida D tackle, the guy that's like what, over 400 pounds? Yeah, that one's interesting. I don't know if I would, go in that direction, but I could see why people like that. Ooh, okay. What did I just do? Okay. See, that's kind of the main positions. We talked about O-line, tight end, D tackle, linebacker, corner, safety. We didn't talk edge. I don't know the Dolphins will necessarily go edge. But I think if they were to go edge, it would be someone with a little bit of positional versatility on the line that could play some 5 tech type of roles, so they could give you more. And I think they're looking because edge is obviously a position that's kind of filled for Miami. They have a lot of guys that can play true edge. But I guess if they wanted to go for more like of a tweener, like a Jordan Birch from Oregon, that'd be interesting. Jared Ivey from Ole Miss as well. Bigger guys that can play edge, but also can play some 5 tech, even some 4-eye. Interesting alignment versatility, which I think the Dolphins value. And that would kind of be it. But then they're more like round 3 options in my eyes. Same with Savion Jones from LSU. He's played both edge and D-line, D tackle for LSU. Elijah Roberts, SMU, but he's more of a day 3 player. You like Kyle McCord? Yes. I don't like the QB class, but McCord is probably. I actually made a video on him recently as well. It's members only right now, but he is a good scheme fit for the Dolphins if they wanted to go after quarterback. And one of the smarter players in the class. Doesn't have great physical traits. Like he's not a great athlete. Doesn't have the strongest arm, but I do think he sees the field well. He's pretty smart. He's accurate. And the system he ran at Syracuse is actually pretty similar to what the Dolphins. What about receiver? Yeah, we can talk about some day 2 options at receiver, but I do think that's more of a day 3 option. But you never know. I think once you best player available is still a thing that they're gonna do, and if receiver's far and away best player available, they might take it. But the only guys I really love are Jack Besh from TCU. I love Jack Besh. And he'd be a great scheme fit. Not sure who else they could go after. If they wanted to go after and keep, going after the smaller, quick twitch receivers like a Jalen Knoll. Also, the other Iowa State kid, Jaden Higgins, if he wanted a bigger body as well. Jalen Royals. Those are names that I think are interesting. But I don't think they'll go after that. Yeah. Because to me, at round 3, that's why I think a lot of these positions are up, is round 3 is very, it's very far apart from your round 2 pick, and it's basically where all your round 4 picks are. So, they're gonna look at like 98 and be like, well, we have a pick at 115, and we have like 4 picks in that area till like 155. So they have a lot of picks from 98 to 155. So they don't necessarily need to force positions at 98 if there's a clear best player available somewhere else. That's why, like, I think 98 could be something a little surprising. Like, it could even be a running back. Like, say it's like Damian Martinez or Cam Scatabo or something that they really like, and then they go after, you know, the other positions that are more needs in round 4. But it's really not that far apart. And they think like, oh, we can get this guy here, and the guy that we really like has a potential to be there, you know, 15 picks later or whatever. Kobe Bryant. Yeah, Kobe Bryant's more of a round 4 guy in my mind. But yeah, he could be a potential, like, I guess, like that pick in that round, that 98 pick. He is very competitive, like one of the most competitive guys in the class, which is honestly one of the biggest things for corners. Those guys need to have a bit of an ego. Since you mentioned McCord, what about Shuck? Okay, so Shuck is interesting because I think purely on film, he has some of the best film in the class at quarterback. Like, he has pretty good athleticism, a pretty good arm. Like, he has the physical tools, and he goes like off, like he throws off platform. He throws it at awkward arm angles. He has a quick release. He's accurate. I think he, you know, sometimes he plays a bit late. The biggest question marks for Shuck is he's 26 and he's had multiple like big injuries. And then I think the decision making can be a bit questionable. We've seen some of the decision making, like he has some Will Levis level decision making out there at times where like what, like I don't know what he's doing, but the highs for Tyler Shuck are as high as anyone in this class. It's just he has some very big question marks that make me be like, I don't know if I would take that. And plus, where I've seen him, like I've seen people talk about him in like round 1 and round 2 now. For me, Tyler Shuck would be like pretty much every quarterback after Cam Ward would be like more of like, I wouldn't take them on day 2. I wouldn't take like any quarterback on day 2. Personally, I don't really like the class. I would start considering some other guys maybe with your late round 3, but Shuck is like a day 3 option that probably doesn't make it to day 3. Tesla, Arkansas is interesting. Yeah, he's a day 3 pick though, but Tesla would be someone I think the Dolphins will have eyes on. BPA is a thing when you're weak at premium positions. The Dolphins go BPA position specific, in my humble opinion. I think early on they'll go BPA at specific position, but I think as the draft goes on, especially after the first 2 picks, I think they're just going to start going BPA. They'll keep position specific stuff in mind, but once you get past like certain spots, it's like, hey, if this receiver's way better than this offensive lineman, then you should take the receiver if they're clearly best player available on your board. There's always exceptions to every rules. I think people go into most GMs go into the draft thinking like BPA at like premium positions, and then you start getting position specific. But I do still think BPA is the best way for teams to go for the most part. Hey, I'd love to see you do a video where you reflect on pre-draft thoughts you had at certain players compared to where they are now. You guys you love that busted or guys you hit on, etc. That's a good idea. I'd have to do some research. Because there's so many players over the years that I've loved and so many players that I maybe didn't like, and they've gone either I was right, maybe some I was wrong, but yeah, that would be interesting. What do you think of Ty Felden? I actually am gonna watch. I have his film pulled up to watch more of because I saw some people had him rated higher than I did because I thought he was more like a middle round player, but I saw some people push him up into like day 2, like round 2, round 3, and I thought he was more of like a round 4 or 5 type guy. But he is interesting. I think he's got some shiftiness, some tracking ability, which is nice. I love players that can track the ball down the field. That's why I was always so high on Terry McLaurin. I was a big Terry McLaurin fan coming out. That's probably one guy I could talk about that I was right on is McLaurin. I thought McLaurin should have got round 1, and then he went round 3. And he was like one of the best trackers I've ever seen. I agree. Uh, there's no way anyone could watch Shedeur Sandersfield, know that he had 0 run game in the worst line of football, and not think he's a great QB prospect. I don't dislike Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's bad. I just don't think like he's not a guy I would. He's not a great QB prospect. That's for sure. There's a lot that more goes into it. Like, yeah, he didn't have the greatest run game or the greatest O line, but he did not help his O line out at all with his ability in the pocket. I do think he's an accurate guy, and I think he plays on time, but he doesn't really stand out in any area to me. Like, I don't hate him. I think like to me, he's a guy that probably should go round 2, but he'll go round 1. Cord shine, yeah. McCord's a day 3 guy, but probably one of the better fits for the Dolphins. The first 3 rounds have to have corner. See, I don't think it has to be the first 3 rounds. Maybe the first 2 rounds, because once you get to your third round pick is literally right next to your like 3 fourth round picks or whatever it is. So it wouldn't be that crazy if they went after another position in the third and then took, say, D line in the fourth, whatever position they didn't take in the first 2. I don't think it'd be that crazy. How do you feel about Kyron Lacey if he's fall? Doesn't he have some serious off-field stuff? Didn't he do something pretty bad? I don't know I can't remember what it was, so I don't want to mention it. I don't dislike Sanders. He's just not. I wouldn't say that. I think he's an NFL quarterback, but I don't think he's a great one. Jaden Higgins or Tate Ratledge? Probably Ratledge for Miami. I do like Higgins a lot, though. I have him rated pretty closely. Not sure I trust this front office to find quality people for our positions of need past the top 3 to 4 rounds of the idea, so it just makes me. The thing is, though, is they have. To me, they have just as big a need at safety, and wide tight end as some of these positions of needs, But yeah. Like those positions are just pretty much just as big of needs. Like you really don't have any starting safeties. Your top wide tight end is Pharaoh Brown. Linebacker, yeah, you're probably more fine because you at least have a lot of bodies there that are, decent enough. But yeah. And honestly, last year I actually thought the Dolphins did a better job drafting on day 3 than they did on day 2. I don't know. I just hate to me how you get fired and how you have a bad draft is you go into the draft thinking I need to take this position in this round because you got to get lucky for that to happen because once you force yourself to be like I'm going to take this position in this round, that's how teams usually end up having bad drafts. Now if the board falls that way for you, then it works out, pretty nicely, but once you force yourself to take certain positions, that's where I don't like limiting yourself to that. I was chatting with Eric Smith. Yeah, he agrees. Isn't until day 3. I actually do think that's possible. But I still think day 2 still has a decent chance of happening. But it would not surprise me if they didn't go O-line. I've talked about it. I wish they would sign one of the veteran free agents. Like if I was going to sign anyone else in free agency, I would just sign a free agent. If Membo, Johnson, Starks, and Barron are there at 13, who would you take? Okay, I would probably go either. It would be between Membo and Johnson. I actually think the Dolphins would go Johnson. I think Miami would go Johnson. And I actually probably would go Johnson too, but it's close. Johnson and Mimbo, I think I literally have them like ranked like back to back. I think I have Johnson like one spot ahead, so I'll go Johnson. That would be nice, Troll. That would be nice. I would not be against it, especially because, probably not going to be crazy. Not if the draft is littered with positions of need. Yeah, I mean, yeah, those positions will be definitely stacked, especially D line, safety. I don't know about O line. I wouldn't say that O line is a very stacked class, and safety has some good spots. But I think there's definitely could be a world on like once you get to round 3, where in round 3 it's like, oh, maybe a player that's at a different position that's maybe not as big of a need, like receiver or whatever other position we want to talk about. It could be linebacker or running back, whatever. It doesn't matter, but like they could easily be best player available. We've seen that play out plenty of times in drafts. But who knows? We'll see how it rolls around. Thoughts on Jack Nelson and Anthony Belton? I haven't watched much of Nelson, but Belton is interesting. He has some inconsistent play, but like he showed up to the Senior Bowl, looked consistent at the Senior Bowl. I would like to see him play guard personally, but that guy's got a really big frame, long arms, pretty good athlete for his size, and this guy moves people, man. Dominant, aggressive player, super physical. He just needs to work on consistency. But I've talked about it. Is I'm looking for those like physical types of players for Miami that have a decent enough athleticism, because where Anthony Belton usually gets into trouble is maybe in pass protection at times with like technique and stuff. But you don't have to be that great in pass pro for what Miami does. If you can be a dominant run blocker, that will help even open up the passing game. But yeah, we'll see. I do like him though. But Nelson, I haven't watched him. Is he Wisconsin? How do you feel about Patrick Paul starting next season? I think it's just one of those ones where would it be nice to upgrade? Yes, but Dolphins have a lot of needs elsewhere. And I think Paul showed enough last season. Like he wasn't great or anything, obviously. But I think he showed enough. And like I've talked about it, you don't have to be the most consistent player in the league in pass pro, which Paul would not be. But he's a great athlete, has great size. Like you can, if he can get some of the details out, especially angles out in space. Literally his biggest problem last year was angles out in space. But like he can move people and he can move himself, which is what I'm looking for. Right, are you ever going to do a full mock draft for like every team's first or second? I haven't thought about it, but maybe. Well, Johnson has that hamstring thing. Did we start looking for injured players for Greer, or are we getting conditioned by Greer? No, I just think, I mean, most players in this draft that you're going to see have had injuries, That's just the way it is. It's football. Obviously, I do think it's, something to notice of. And some people have like serious like injury histories. But I don't know. I think the whole injury thing can be over talked about at times, because sometimes you draft a player that never had any injuries and they get an injury right away. And sometimes you draft a player that had injuries and then didn't suffer injuries. Yeah. Andre Frazier, Radledge, Fairchild, Rivers, Slater, and yeah. Oh, you're naming a lineman? Oh, I mean, yeah. Some of those guys, I like Radledge a lot. Fairchild's fine. Bo's fine, but like Ursery's fine. But like a lot of those guys are day 3 picks, in my opinion. Majority of those players are day 3 picks, actually. Ratledge would be a good pick around 2. Bo, Ursery, but I think everyone else is more of a round 4-ish player. Potentially even later. So like I wouldn't take those guys over like a round 2 receiver that fell to round 3, Is there any position I didn't talk about for round 2? Oh no. Yeah. We need 2 safeties in this draft. Yeah, they might come away with 2 safeties, but I actually wouldn't be surprised if safety is one of the positions they don't put a focus on because they signed multiple in free agency. Kind of similar to what they did with D tackle last year. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see a safety pick until day 3 because Dolphins have a lot of needs at nearly every spot other than like the offensive skill positions. Running back. I mean, day 2 options at running back. If they were going to go running back, which I don't think they will, but as I'm saying, once you get to that round 3 pick, I think a lot of positions become on the board for Miami because it's basically a round 3/4 edge pick. Like it's on the edge of round 3 and round 4. But some guys that I like. I mean, the running back class is stacked. I wouldn't be surprised if McDaniel loves like Travion Henderson, but he'll be gone. Some bigger body guys that can, do some stuff. Damian Martinez, Cam Scattaboo. If you wanted some more short yardage backs. Trying to think who else the Dolphins would like. Yeah, Tootin from Virginia Tech. Tootin from Virginia Tech has amazing film, but man, that guy has some of the biggest fumbling problem I've ever seen. But his explosiveness and burst and fluidity is so good. I like Craig Woodson. I don't really care for Raheem Sanders. I think he's fine. I'm not going to be mad if he's like a late round pick or anything, obviously. Jalen Lane and Jaden Blue. Wouldn't be surprised if they love Blue. I've only taken Craig Woodson in like every mock draft I've done because for some reason they have him there in the 7th every single time, and I'm like, well, take him in the 7th. Got 3 7th round picks. Sorry, I'm trying to type something. Oh, you're talking about the receiver, right? Oh yeah, Jalen Lane. I'm stupid. Okay, dude, I literally have in my notes for Jalen Lane. Let me go to my Jalen Lane notes because I'm pretty sure it's going to be the first line in my notes about Jalen Lane. I put he reminds me of Malik Washington. Very similar size and play style. And they kind of move the same. I actually think Jalen Lane tested a bit better. I think he's a little more explosive, but I think Malik was more reliable and a little more productive in college. Malik was more like reliable with his hands and stuff like that. But Jalen Lane reminds me a lot of Malik Washington. But I think Lane ran even faster. I wouldn't be surprised if Lane jumps up, but who knows? How do you feel about Torrey Horton? I like Torrey Horton. I don't know where he's gonna go though. To me, he's like he's probably a round 3/4 player. Has some, good quickness, ball skills, nice catch radius. I feel like he was just a little limited at times at Colorado State with what they asked him to do. Who's your comp for Jalen Royals? Jalen Knoll? About Tez Johnson? Well, Tez Johnson would be like a Tank Dell, an even smaller Tank Dell, which is kind of crazy. Royals? I don't think he's as good as DJ Moore, but I kind of see DJ Moore like I think they're similar sizes. I think they have similar kind of movement. DJ Moore might be a little more explosive, but they kind of have similar like physicality. They're both kind of good with the ball in their hands, kind of have the same build type thing. I could see that. Who's the other one you asked about? Jalen Noel. Jalen Noel. I'd have to think about it. I'm trying to think of someone that has sort of his size and explosiveness. I don't know. I don't see it with Royals. I don't know how you don't see it, but everyone sees things differently. I think Royals is like one of the most well-rounded receivers in the class. Like that guy doesn't do anything bad. Waddle, I don't see a 1-to-1 there. I can see why people might say Noel for Waddle, but I think Waddle's just a different level of explosiveness. Plus, their build's like a little bit different. Like Noel is almost like kind of running back type build, while Waddle's a little, not quite that. Thoughts on the UCLA tight end? Matovo. Yeah, I've seen a little bit on him. He's interesting though. I'm pretty sure I'm about to get some film on him, but he's an interesting developmental wide tight end, so I need more. So I'm excited to watch more of him. What do you think of Jalen McLeod? Is he the Auburn guy? I think I watched like one game of him. Did I take notes? I can't remember if I took notes. No, I didn't, huh? But he's listed here at what, a little under 6'2", 241. So it seems like, some decent production as well. He also does like some stuff off the edge as well. So he plays like off ball and edge. I remember that. Can do some interesting things like dropping into zone. I wonder if like they maybe potentially see him a sort of like a Quentin Bell type, where kind of a tweener. He's definitely not as athletic as Bell was, and Bell's on the team, so. CJ Dippre as good or better than Haas? I prefer Haas. I just think Haas is a much better blocker. I don't think Dippre is a bad blocker. Dippre would give you more as a receiver, but I just think Haas clears him enough for me as a blocker where I would like, once I'm getting to day 3 tight end options, like I'm not expecting like great production out of day 3 tight ends, so I might as well just get like the guy who could potentially be a dominant blocker rather than Dippre, who I think could be like, a decent blocker with some receiving ability, but not enough to make me take him over Haas. But I could see people liking Dippre over him. You watched Jameer Dyke? Yeah, the Florida receiver? Yeah, I've seen him. He was better than I thought he would be. He also tested better than I thought he would be, which is good for him. Like I think he's pretty. Like I think he's like, for what I saw, didn't see many people talking about him. But I think he's draftable. Solid build. Kind of a possession guy, can play inside outside. Seems like he has a pretty good feel for things. Willing blocker as well, which is always nice for a receiver. I think the blocking is similar. See, I've seen people talk up Dupree's blocking lately, and I just like, to me, I've seen like a few reps where I'm like, oh, that's some good blocking, but for the most part, it's just like average. Like I would say he's an average blocker, while I think Haas is like a very good blocker. And maybe he can develop and get even more consistent, but that's just how I see it. Mock draft database. I could try it for the next one, maybe, or I'll test it out before. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if the Dolphins like CJ Dippre, especially on day 3, because he at least has some blocking ability. A lot of the tight ends in the class don't have any, like at all. He can at least play some wide tight end, so like I wouldn't hate it. I just think Haas is definitely a better blocker. But the tight end class is really good. Willie Lampkin. Hey, I posted a video on Willie Lampkin today. Check it out, guys. Willie Lampkin has some of the most fun film in the class. It's too bad he's 5'10", 270, but that guy's a stud. Yeah, any final questions? I'm just excited for the draft to roll around. I'm sure the Dolphins will do something different than people expected anyways. I mean, for me with Lampkin, it's like I understand why people would be like hesitant, right? You know, because like he's a huge outlier. But I do believe outliers exist for a reason. Like there are people who like defy the odds, like whether they're too small or like they, maybe weren't the most athletic, like people didn't usually make like that. But to me, it's like those guys fall in the draft for a reason. If he's there in, the 7th round, his film's too good to just be like, and Dolphins have 3 7th-round picks. It's like, might as well use one on him. His film's so good and he's so athletic. And it's like, if he doesn't work at an O-line, like I think he's legit athletic enough to play fullback and just be used as like a fullback or 6-0 lineman. So to me, there's like a role that could be found for him if he doesn't work out at guard or center or whatever it was. Where's my boy Betch going to go? Mid-second? I would guess so. I think he's probably a 2nd-round guy. I have him rated very highly. I love Jack Besh as a player. Jack Besh was like one of the first players I watched this cycle. But yeah, very fun guy. Turning that back on. The light is changing up here. I think there'll be heavy runs that will throw the board. Yeah, it's always so unpredictable. And I've heard people talk about like people that have like sources and stuff saying like teams are very split. Like since the draft is so since there's not like it's not a top heavy draft and people like really like the players from like 20 to 80, that people have those players rated in 20 to 80 very differently. So you might see some players potentially fall that you weren't expecting. So yeah, I could definitely see that happening. He played Jack Besh, yeah. Yeah, he could go. I don't think the Dolphins will take him. Especially now with I don't think the Dolphins like if the Dolphins didn't sign Westbrook Akine, I do think they should be looking in the draft for like a bigger body receiver. I don't think Nick Westbrook Akine makes them so they don't have to draft one. But if they didn't sign him, I would be like down to take one, but I don't think he will. How far do you think Nick Nash is from Jack Besh? Well, I'm pretty high. Like I think Nash is like a fun, late round option, but like I think I have Besh as my 5th receiver, 6th if you count Travis Hunter as receiver. That's always tough with my receiver and corner rankings is because I don't know whether to count Travis Hunter a part of both of them, one of them, or just don't even count Travis Hunter a part of either of them and just keep them separate. But like I'm very high on Jack Besh, probably higher than most people are. I would say like Jack Besh, Jade Barron are guys that I'm probably higher on than most people. Probably some others. Like Donovan Jackson, I'm probably higher on than most people. Tyler Warren. Yeah, Besh isn't playing tight end. He's not big enough, but he would be able to play like as a big slot receiver and do some type of blocking stuff similar to like how the Rams use their receivers. I'd be surprised if they kept all of their late picks. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they moved around a little bit, especially, maybe in round 3. I could see them like trading up in round 3. That's a possibility. Like I think because they have so many picks in that like range after that, they could trade up a little bit in round 3. And the round 3 pick is pretty late. And then I could also see them potentially, trading back in round 1 or 2. I think that's not off the board. And then round 7, I could see them maybe trading up, just use 2 of your 7s to trade up a bit or something. Honestly, I still want a wide receiver, but that's a day 3. No, yeah, I think day 3 is a lot of the positions that are on the board. Like, I think you could take almost any position on day 3. Because Dolphins have enough needs pretty much everywhere that it's like not a bad thing for them to take at most spots. Uh, like I see Besh in kind of like he's not. I'm not saying he's going to be to this level, but I think he's a like he's not going to be like Puka Nakua. But I do think like the Puka Nakua play style is kind of where he's at, um, especially if he ends up in like that kind of system. Like I think he'll be a very quality wide receiver. Eric was telling me he thought Booker was higher. Yeah, I've seen him talk about Booker. I understand why people like I do think like people say Booker couldn't play in the system. I don't think that's necessarily true. Um, but he's not like an ideal fit at all. Like and to me, like he's not gonna be there at 48, so I wouldn't like and I'm definitely not taking him at 13. That's just like I don't even like consider Booker really anymore because I wouldn't use my first on him. Um, Barron at 13 and Watts at 48. I don't know if they would go back to back DB in round 1 and 2, but those are two players that I really like. I guess it would depend on like what you could get on the trenches either later in the draft and also in free agency because you could still there's still some moves that could potentially be made that could improve your roster from free agency. But yeah, definitely some fun day 2 options. Uh, I'm guessing day 2. I don't know. Round 1 feels like it's either somewhere defensively, maybe D line corner, and then day 2 feels like the round 2 pick might be the other one that they didn't take, and then round 3 could go in like a bunch of different directions because 98 is just late. The late pick, people will start falling off the board that maybe you weren't expecting. Like I wouldn't be surprised they maybe threw a little bit of a curveball there. Yeah, said Puka for bit. Yeah, they just have similar like play styles, especially with when Puka's playing more of that big slot role. It was interesting because if you watched Nakua in college at BYU, they actually had him run just verticals like a lot, and he was a very good like back shoulder fade guy in college. Um, but yeah, the Rams did a really good job scouting him because I liked Nakua a lot coming out, but he did even better than I expected. I think I'm probably gonna end it there. Thank you guys for watching.